Good morning. Welcome to the HGACBuy webinar. This morning, we want to discuss how to use the HGACBuy disaster recovery contracts and remain compliant with FEMA's procurement requirements. My name is Ronnie Barnes. I'm the Director of Public Services Department. HGACBuy, our cooperative purchasing program, is a part of that department. And I'm going to spend a few minutes with you all to try and get you up to speed as to what's going on with HGAC and its disaster recovery contracts, our vendors and our members, and most of all, FEMA. I'd like to start by giving a little background information on how we've gotten to the point where we are. So if you bear with me, I'll go through a few historical issues and try and put the whole thing in context so we can discuss what HGAC has done to try to help our vendors and our members be able to utilize these contracts in the seemingly endless occurrences of disasters. So back in 2015, HGAC and HGACBuy had a couple of contracts available for our membership. One contract was called Disaster Debris Removal and Clearance. That contract was administered by our Community and Environmental Department, and it was procured in 2012. Similarly, we had a contract in the Cooperative Purchasing Program called All Hazards Preparedness Planning, Consulting, and Recovery Services, which included disaster debris removal monitoring. And that contract was procured in 2013. Those two contracts were in position when we had our 2015 Memorial Day flood event. Some of you were probably involved, and most of us remember when that happened. We had a member of HGACBuy use those two contracts in their recovery efforts. And about a year after, in July of 2016, we received a letter from the Office of Inspector General with Department of Homeland Security, FEMA's OIG, questioning and had some issues with the use of those contracts. They made a couple of distinct declarations in their letter. One said that our procurement was restrictive to competition, and the other comment they made was that we did not document using the affirmative steps outlined in 2 CFR 200. So HGAC decided to as we were working through that issue with our member and with FEMA, we decided we needed to re-procure the contracts that we had in place. So we consulted with a legal expert who was an authority on 2 CFR 200 procurement, and we solicited contracts for disaster debris removal and for all hazard preparedness, resulting in 3 different contracts. One, DR 09-17 for disaster debris removal and clearance. And then there were 2 contracts for all hazard preparedness, HP 08-17 and HP 10-17. All 3 of those contracts were put in place late in 2017. And along comes Hurricane Harvey on 25th of 2017. We're all familiar with the devastation, the wide devastation in the region because of Harvey. So these 2 contracts were put in place in order to help local governments to be able to procure the services they needed in order to recover from these events. In October the 6th to be exact of 2017, there was a document broadcast that had a FEMA logo on it, and it was entitled HGACBuy and compliance with federal procurement standards for non-state public assistance applicants. The document came from nowhere. It did not have a signature on it. It only had a FEMA logo on it. It didn't have the usual FEMA letterhead. And it was sent all over the region and caused everybody, including vendors and members, to start hesitating whether or not this was a viable contracting document based on this document that FEMA had put out. A couple of things in that document I want to make note of. One, it has in the background some pretty specific information that gave an understanding, or at least appeared to be FEMA's understanding of HGAC and our cooperative purchasing program. And it read, HGAC solicits and awards contracts from various services to a number of vendors, and following award, the HGAC members or end users can make use of these contracts. It went on further to say the award of the contract by HGAC to a particular vendor does not result in a binding commitment by HGAC for the purchase of the actual services or property. Under this arrangement, HGAC operates essentially as a purchasing agent for all of its members and establishes a supply contract and supply contract schedule with various vendors at fixed prices for each of its 9 primary contract categories, which is a very accurate statement of what HGACBuy's cooperative purchasing program is and does. The document then went the complete opposite direction we expected, and it made 2 distinct declarations. One, it said that HGAC's solicitation of the contracts I described earlier did not comply with federal procurement standards. And it also listed 5 areas that they titled potential non-compliance issues. And those were full and open competition, affirmative steps, local preference, required contract clauses, and standards of conduct. Again, this document did not have anyone's signature on it, did not have the official letterhead, and it was broadcast, and it caused some questioning, major questioning of whether or not our contract documents or our contract vehicles were valid procurements to be able to use in the recovery efforts from Harvey. HGAC immediately did 2 things. We retained an expert counsel in the matter, and then we wrote a response to FEMA based on this letter that was issued October 6th of 2017. And we asked them to do 2 things. We asked them to rescind their conclusion, and we gave them a whole host of reasons based on those 5 areas of potential non-compliance to where HGAC thought we were on solid ground and we met the requirements. FEMA responded to that letter, to our initial letter, in March of 2018. I'm sorry, in July of 2018, that said they could not rescind the declaration that was made, but they could update it based on the information HGAC had submitted to them in our initial response. FEMA then issued a fact sheet, and the fact sheet was entitled Public Assistance, Purchasing Goods and Services to a Cooperative Purchasing Program, and that was dated September 18, 2018, and that document is still up on FEMA's website as guidance for non-state applicants in the use of cooperative purchasing. That document had a couple of statements in it that were not accurate in terms of HGAC. One, it describes what cooperative purchasing is, what a program is, and it read that cooperative purchasing program is a cooperative arrangement for acquiring goods and or services involving aggregating the demand of 2 or more entities in an effort to obtain a more economical purchase. HGAC does not aggregate demand, so that is not an accurate statement based on the way HGACBuy does their work. We actually have no quantities. The demand would suggest that there was quantities had to be included. We simply academically, through our vendors and our end users, develop contracts and specifications or solicitations, and the specifications of those solicitations kind of abstract, and we get to specifics through our pre-bid conferences and consulting with our vendors and end users on what they would like to have on contract. So that aggregating demand statement is not accurate as it pertains to HGAC. The second thing they noted in there was that we do this at pre-negotiated rates, and HGAC does not negotiate rates with vendors in order to establish the contracts we have. We go through a sealed, formal, competitive bid or RFP process in order to establish the pricing that is included on our contracts. That fact sheet also then on the second page lists all of those items that they said HGAC was not in compliance with in their earlier correspondence, and they gave some specifics about that. So that document, we reviewed it, we responded to it, and we had a long period of back and forth discussions with FEMA about some of the things that were noted in there, and we educated them on what HGAC does and what HGAC does not do. And that went on for practically about a year. And finally, we received another letter in July of 2019 where FEMA looked at our responses and our suggestions for some guidance pieces that we're developing, and they provided us with an analysis and a recommendation that we have worked from since that time. In their response, they did a couple of things that I'd like to share with you. One, they said, while the October 6th, the original document right after Harvey became public, it was not intended to serve as a public FEMA guidance on the HGAC program. It further read, as a rule, FEMA only publicly issues general guidance that is of wide application to all applicant types, rather than discrete guidance for specific purchasing programs such as HGACBuy. Accordingly, FEMA does not intend to publicly issue formal guidance on HGACBuy. So we were pleased to receive that, and then they went further in that document to offer us some information about the guidance pieces that we've put together and how we can change some of the language to read in such a way it would be acceptable to FEMA in giving guidance on how best to use the HGAC program and the contracts that we have in place. So that's kind of the background. I want to share with you how we got to this point. And what we've done since then, we've created two guidance pieces, both of which are on our website. And now I'd like to go through those guidance pieces with you just to give you some information, and then I'll take you to our website in a few minutes to show you where those documents are, where you can access them, and then you can be able to share them with your teams respectively. The first guidance piece is called Procurement Guidance Sheet, Insurance Compliance with Federal Requirements. That document simply addresses those issues that were outlined in the original October of 2017 document by FEMA, and it talks about full and open competition, socioeconomic contracting, and standards of conduct. We simply took that document, stated the 2 CFR 200 reference, and then we list out what HGAC does in its procurement process as a rule that meets those requirements as we see them. It goes through our solicitation. It talks about the types of procurements we do. It talks about how we go about evaluating our contracts, our solicitations and issuing contracts. It talks about HGAC does not use geographic or local preferences. It talks about the affirmative steps that we take. It also talks about the written policies. It covers standards of conduct and ethics and conflict of interest. And it talks about having disclosure statements that we include as documentation in each of our procurements. That document is on our website, and that was the first piece that we issued. The second piece that we issued speaks specifically to the disaster recovery contracts. It also lists out steps that HGAC has done. In particular, HGAC establishes our pre-qualified contractor list through a formal sealed competitive proposal process, which establishes the pre-qualified contractors with ceiling rates for the services offered. The document also includes further instructions for members that use our contracts, in that you can document what HGAC has done in terms of a formal solicitation, but it also requires members to go a step further and write specific scope of work and range of quantity that would be used for the services offered in the HGAC contracts, in which that is pre-qualified pool. And it asks for you to solicit a minimum of 3 of those contractors available in our pool. And if it is not a public emergency or an exigent situation, that you must also solicit a quote from other vendors, contractors who are not part of our pre-qualified list, in order to have a valid solicitation and competition prior to entering into a contract or agreement with whoever it is you select. So you can use as many of the vendors that we have available on our contracts, on our list, on our pool of contractors. And if you're not in an emergency situation, the FEMA has said in their guidance back to HGAC, which we're sharing with you, that you also have to give other contractors an opportunity to solicit a bid as well. It did not say in their document that it had to be a formal solicitation, other than you needed to write a scope of work, you need to have a range of amount of services that you'll need, and you'll need to send it to as many contractors as you would like, including those that may be interested in submitting a response that are not part of the HGAC pre-qualified pool. You will need to establish an award criteria, the same as HGAC did when we awarded our contracts. You'll have to document what your criteria for award is based on price or what other criteria you may want to include in your selection process. You just must make sure that that criteria is published when you write your scope of work and send it out to those vendors who may be interested in responding. That document, this document also gives some links that are helpful and are required by FEMA in their guidance to us. One is that you have some required contract provisions that need to be included in the contract document resulting from your solicitation. We have a link on that document to those contract provisions. There's also a link to a template for those contract provisions. There's a link as well for a checklist for compliance that FEMA has generated. So you'll be able to check off all of the things that they ask that you have in your solicitation documentation if it should be reviewed. HGAC also has provided on our website, and we'll get to that in just a second, a zip file of all the solicitation documents HGAC has provided, where you can document what HGAC has done, including our bidders list for our hubs and MWBEs, as well as the disclosure statements our staff who evaluate those contracts has signed. We made that information a part of the documentation that's available on the website. So our complete solicitation is documented from the legal ads to the specification to the evaluation forms to our award recommendation to our board of directors, to our bidders list and our methodology used to build that bidders list with the hubs and MWBEs, and then our disclosure statement that speaks to our standards of conduct that we must maintain in order to have open competition for the contracts that we solicit. So as vendors, our recommendation and some of the things that we can suggest for you guys to do is to use those resources that I've been talking about here for the last few minutes that are on our website. I'm going to go to the website in just a few minutes and show you where those documents are so you can see what they look like and be familiar with them. The second thing you can do is to work with our staff. You guys are experts in your field of business, and you're not experts in HGAC solicitation and our procurement process. We are. And so questions that you might have, questions an end user may have of us that they come to you, and you may not have all the answers, we're here to partner with you in order to be able to respond to those questions and concerns, point to you to specific documents in our solicitation package that you may be in search of to answer any questions someone might have regarding using HGACBuy. And the last thing you can do is work with our marketing and outreach team to develop some marketing materials, some co-branding opportunities in order to get the word out that HGAC is a viable contracting tool for members to use your services to respond to their disaster recovery and planning operations. What can we do as members? I hope that there are some members that are on the call as well. First thing you want to do, or you may want to do, is consult with your legal department and or your procurement office and have them take a look at what we've provided, what we document, we do, what documentation of solicitation is available to make sure that compliance is there. Second thing you can do is use our website, the resources that are available on the website to show the documentation, to read the letter from FEMA that we worked off of, to see the FEMA fact sheet so you can find all that information in one spot. And the last thing, work with our staff. We hope that you will get familiar with our staff, give them a call, send them an email, so we can be able to answer any of those questions. We want to partner with you guys to do this kind of work and not have you try and answer all those questions on your own. Our staff is available to do that. Now, if you bear with me a few minutes, I'll go over to our website. I'll show you these documents I've been speaking of and show you where they are and how you can get to them. So our website is www.hgacbuy.org. And on our home page, at the bottom of the page, there's a call-out box for the disaster recovery guidance. It's kind of gold box here. If you click there, it will take you to that first document, the procurement's guidance sheet. You can see it talks about those issues, full and open competition, tells you what HGACBuy does and does not do. It gives some instruction on what you must do as well. And that document is located behind this link. If you click Read More takes you to a different page, and it talks specifically about the 3 contracts that we have in place. It also provides this document, our how-to document, how to utilize the available contractors pool list and ensure compliance. Here in the red box is what I was roughly describing to you about what you must do, the second step that must be taken when you use these HGACBuy contracts in order to be in full compliance with the competition portion of the solicitation. Also, here are the links that we talked about, link for the provisions that need to be included in the contract, the template that is available, as well as the checklist, and there's a link for the full version of the current edition of 2 CFR 200. These documents are also available on our homepage. If you go over and click the Resources tab, under the Resources tab, you'll see HGACBuy Procurement Guidance Sheet. If you click onto that, that provides you that document again that we just talked about. If you're in the Resources tab and you click on the Disaster Recovery Guidance, it brings you back to that page that also has the HGAC how-to document. Also listed there is a copy of the last correspondence that we had from FEMA, dated July 2nd. And it goes through all of the issues that they have with our performance, our guidance documents, and you can see the detail that they provided on how we should structure our guidance documents in order to be able to help you guys use the contracts and stay in compliance. Also, I'd like to show you this on our website. If you go to our products and services, well, let me back up. Back in the Resources tab, there is a button, a link here that says the current HGACBuy contract document. You click on that link, it will give you a list of all of the contracts. Here is the disaster debris removal contract. If you click on that, there's a link here that says solicitation documents. It's a zip file. It contains all of the documents HGAC used in our solicitation, from the legal ad all the way down to our disclosure statement. And that link is there for each and every contract for HGAC. Specifically in this discussion is there for all of those contracts that we have for disaster recovery activity, HPO 8-17, HP 10-17, and DR 09-17. Those are the items on our website that are available. Those are the resources that I was referencing that you have at your disposal on the website. And we can also make sure when you call us, we will be able to go through the website with you, show you where those documents are at any time. We're also going to add to that list of resources another FEMA fact sheet that's entitled Procurement Conducted Under Exigent or Emergency Circumstances. We thought that would be useful to give you some guidance on when it's acceptable by FEMA that you do not have to go through the full competition and solicitation process in order to procure services needed to recover from a disaster. I'd like to remind everyone that the webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on our website under our how-to link. It will be listed here and available for you 24/7. With that, put some contact information up. You can reach me. There's my email and my phone number. You can also reach Brian Denzel, who is the manager of our Cooperative Purchasing Program, HGACBuy. His contact information, as well as Tanya Campbell for those outreach and those marketing and those co-branding opportunities. You can reach out to Tanya Campbell, who is our principal outreach coordinator for all of that activity. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks and I'll be available to answer some questions that you may have. We won't be probably will not be able to answer all of the questions, but we will take them all down and we'll respond to them by email or by phone call after the webinar has concluded. So if you have any questions there on your dialog box, you can see where the questions go. Please feel free to enter those questions and we'll answer as many as we can. Okay, I'd like to answer one question I see here. The question is, since HGAC is a governmental cooperative, I can also reach them for any type of goods and services, right? The answer to the question is yes. We have many other products and services that are available to governments and entities that qualify to be able to use HGACBuy. We have those contracts available, not just for the emergency preparedness and response contracts. Second question I see here is, did FEMA mention any issues on using the established agreements outside of Texas? There is nothing in 2 CFR 200 that limits the use of our contracts outside of Texas. HGACBuy is a national program. We have membership in all 48 contiguous states and Alaska. We have, I believe, one end user in Hawaii as well. So all 50 states are represented with HGACBuy, and we're not just located in Texas. Anyone in the states can use it. We have another question. Have you had any other issues with cities, counties not receiving FEMA reimbursements? There's some new contracts in 2017 have been available. We're not aware of any. We've not been notified by any end user or any member that they have been denied reimbursement for the use of our contracts since these new contracts were put in place. There's been a lot of hesitance to use the contracts, and so we did the webinar today to try to clear up any of the information or misconceptions that may be out there as to what FEMA has said about the HGACBuy contracts, and we made sure to provide those guidance pieces to help you as well. Another question, how often are you planning on resoliciting your disaster contracts? These contracts were issued in 2017. They were for a 3-year period. So in 2020, we will start the solicitation process to re-establish those contracts. There's a question, will there be a recording of this presentation afterwards? Absolutely, we'll record. It'll be on our website under the How-Tos tab on the homepage of our website. There's a question: has HGAC reviewed the latest draft of FEMA's PPG to be published in January to see if any new guidelines would have any bearing on HGAC? But we have not, but we are in the process of reviewing that as well. We've not heard anything from FEMA. There's a question: has FEMA responded since you put up the new guidance pieces since July? No, we have not had any feedback from FEMA. We simply reviewed what FEMA's response was to our guidance pieces we had drafted with our legal counsel, and the documents that resulted are the advice of legal counsel in their interpretation of what FEMA was instructing us to do. So we don't appear to have any more questions. You have our contact information. Please reach out if you have questions after the webinar is concluded. I appreciate everyone's joining in with us this morning. I hope we provided some clear information, some clear guidance on how to go about using HGACBuy in disaster recovery activities, and look forward to speaking with you all again. Thank you.